Good morning, everybody, and welcome back to my channel. If you are new here, this is actually It's Amira, where I talk news, celebrity, gossip, hot topics, you name it, I talk about it. I like to come on and give my perspective on what's going on out here in these social media, YouTube, and celebrity streets. And today we are going to be talking about the current updates in the Blac China case, my opinions on what I think Lenciani's next move should be, and how we move forward to a resolution that benefits Blac China. But please be reminded that all the opinions I state here on this channel are just that, my opinions. And allegedly, because I do not know these people. Once again, I don't know these people. I'm just giving you my opinion, and I'm glad you came to listen. So let's get into it. If you saw the title of this live, it's Critical Moves Blac China's Attorney must make in order to win big. Now, I've been following the trial closely, and there have been some critical missteps on both parts, on both the part of Michael Rhodes, who's representing the lead as the lead attorney for the Kardashians, as well as Lenciani, who seems to be taking a very passive, even keeled, not go too hard, kind of just play it by the wayside approach to this case, which I am a little bit concerned about. Now, while I understand that Lenciani has some very big smoking gun elements to this case, it is not lost upon me that level of trepidation when it comes to attacking the critical elements of the case can become lost on the jury. So when I think about court cases and what it takes to win at trial, the number one thing you will find in any law book, any case study, anything you've ever read about the law, the one thing you will find to be the most important is the jury. That is who is going to decide whether you win or whether you lose. And then, secondly, the judge decide whether or not the damages will be granted or you will go to prison. That is what you need to focus on, the jury. So, what does Lenciani need to do? If you're not living under a rock, you know that Michael Rhodes pulled a dirty, dark, and disgusting move when he displayed Blac China's nudes to her in court prior to giving her testimony. I talked about this in one of my earlier lives, but I immediately cited that as a psychological and emotional attack against Blac China in order to dehumanize her and place her in a state of mind in which she, quote, needed to know her position. It was done as a tactic to throw her off her rocker, to eliminate all of the preparation that she had put into preparing to answer the questions, and to make her rattled, constantly thinking about that yet another man has seen her naked without her consent. Do you guys understand the magnitude and severity of such a dehumanizing act and a disgusting display of humanity that is? Now, what Blac China does in her private life with her OnlyFans is her business. I am a firm believer that every woman has the right to consent to the way she uses her body, the way her body is displayed, and how she chooses to profit from it, because her body is her property and it is also her temple. But for somebody to exploit her in the court of law for people who she did not consent to that exploitation was a deliberate and disgusting act that, in my opinion, violates ethical practice of law on more levels than just what happened in that courtroom that day. To me, if I'm in the jury box and I am aware that what he did was unethical, it would automatically make me question the character of not only Michael Rhodes, but of the Kardashians, who hired somebody who was so flippant and disrespectful to represent them. However, I'm not exactly sure that Lenciani is making that level of shock and awe apparent to the jury. My expectation when Michael Rhodes displayed those photos would have been for Lenciani to jump out of her chair, push the table forward a bit, and go, Your Honor, we need to take a step back. We need to go talk in your chambers because I am not okay with him displaying my client in this manner when this has been deemed inadmissible evidence. She needed to make a scene immediately and disallow that testimony from continuing right then and there. Court should have been adjourned. It should have been a recess. The judge should have reset the jury and they should have proceeded forward accordingly. Linciani letting that move play out could have also been a strategy, because any good lawyer knows that you always need an ace in the hole. You always need an element of surprise and an element of "I didn't see you coming." So Linciani's latest move to potentially threaten mistrial if China is not granted a second opportunity to prepare for her testimony is a smart move. But here's a better move Linciani needs to make, in my opinion. Linciani needs to hire someone who specializes in voir dire, which is jury selection. Now, even though the jury has already been decided, someone who specializes in voir dire is properly trained on how to read social cues, biases, unspoken behaviors, passive aggressive thoughts, stern looks. They are trained to interpret how a juror might react and or vote on this particular case. I highly recommend she hires somebody who specializes in voir dire, and further hires somebody who specializes in body language. These are two very critical things that she needs to do in order to secure that Blac Chyna has a fair and impartial trial, or if Blac Chyna is in fact winning over the jury with her steadfast approach. She needs to do this expeditiously, in the words of T.I. Tip Harris. It's an expeditious move she needs to make, because the trial, in my opinion, is slipping away, and we're losing focus on what was done to Chyna, and more focus is being placed on Chyna's violence, Chyna's temper, Chyna's outbursts, Chyna's this, Chyna's that. It's too much focus on the faults of Chyna and not enough focus on what exactly the Kardashians and their attorney have done to continuously display unethical behavior and conspiring behavior. We need to refocus the case immediately, and she needs to see if she has the jury, if she has the impartiality of the jury or the favor of the jury. It's the time is now, Linciani. The time is now. You need to find two people, voir dire and jury and body language, and you need to have them sit in on the next session of court, and you need to have them read the cues of their body language in order to get a better idea of where we stand today. Without that, I am getting a very bad feeling about this outcome for Blac Chyna, because despite the smoking gun, and that's one thing I want to ask, if I could ask Linciani, and one thing I want to mention is that sometimes you can be so arrogant about your ability to win a case. And I'm not saying Linciani is arrogant, but sometimes if you think you have a really tight case, you can become lazy about your preparation. And I've been hearing reports that the Kardashians have upwards of 8 attorneys looking at this, prosecuting this case. I mean, outside of Michael Rose as the lead, that they hired an entire team to work on this case. Whereas Linciani seems to kind of just be doing it by herself with a few paralegals, maybe a second chair, but not enough. Like, the level of research and just basic questions and the pressure she needs to be putting on these Kardashians just doesn't seem to be there. And if it is there, it is not being picked up by the media. It's not being picked up. All the reports seem to lean in favor of Blac Chyna being in the wrong in this situation, when we have smoking gun evidence of Khloe Kardashian sending a text message to E Network saying it's either us or Chyna and Rob. We will pull our show. We will refuse to film if you renew Chyna and Rob. To me, that's an ace in the hole. And yet I feel that Linciani has let this grand piece of evidence not slip by the wayside. She has not positioned the court to understand the magnitude of the conspiracy and to really focus on the deceitful testimony of Jeff Jenkins, who went on a Zoom and testified in open court that he never agreed to renew Rob and Chyna, despite significant reports from E themselves, as well as major news outlets reporting the contrary. She is not making enough of an impact about the significant influence that Kris Jenner had over not only the E Network, but also Blac Chyna herself. She's not making, and I don't know if it's inadmissible, but the fact that they have trademarked her daughter's name and her daughter's likeness, to me, it only shows and further proves the lengths that these people will go to ensure Blac Chyna'S timely demise. It is calculated, it is conspiratorious, it is disgusting, and she needs to step on it and make sure that the jury understands the compelling nature of Blac Chyna'S grievances. And I don't feel she's hitting the mark. She needs to hire a body language expert to let us know immediately. Let her know, not us, but let her know immediately if she has the jury. Do I have the jury? Have I done a good enough job proving the lengths these girls will go to win? I don't even feel like she's pressed enough on the fact that Life of Kylie took Blac Chyna'S time slot when they canceled the show, and that Life of Kylie was a failing TV show. Why would the E Network pull a hit show to replace it with a failing one? The math is not mathing, and Linciani needs to press that. She needs to press these critical elements of the case, and she needs to figure out from a body language expert if she has the jury. Because if you don't have the jury, emotional jury, you cannot win the case. Now, one thing I want to point you guys' attention to is something critical that happened early on in the jury selection. If you guys recall, there was a juror who said in open court that I cannot serve on the jury of this case because I have seen Kim Kardashian's X tape, and that I cannot focus in this case because I'm going to be replaying scenes of that tape in my mind. I don't think Linciani is pressing enough on the significant damage that it can do to tamper a jury once they have seen a woman, particularly a woman, as distasteful, dehumanized, and willing to be exploited. That juror who gave Linciani a firsthand account of the damage that can be done when you show someone in the distasteful sexual light, the juror already showed how the impact it would have on his ability to be impartial. You already have proof of concept, Linciani. And if I were her, I would be pointing that to the judge as exhibit A. We had a juror who testified that thinking of Kim Kardashian's tape would significantly impact his impartiality. What is the difference between that and the new photos that Mr. Rhodes blatantly displayed in open court and eyesight and eyeline of the jury? What is the difference? Because there is none. There is none. She needs to think about that. And I would caution her to move to mistrial if it were me, but only after she has had a body language and voir dire expert come in and tell her where the jury stands today. Do you have a shot at winning based on the testimony brought forward in this court, or should we rethink and refresh? Now, there's significant risk to backing out of this trial and starting over. You give the defense, which is the Kardashians, an opportunity to redo their whole case, to fix certain elements of their story that just didn't make sense, like Kylie's testimony about Blac Chyna stabbing Tyga, but she couldn't depict what arm it was on. She was very vague. It almost came across as I'm making this shit up as I go kind of story. You risk that. You risk Kris Jenner getting on there making a mockery of the slapping of Will Smith, and that when Will Smith slapped Chris Rock, and mocking that in open court as if to position her son as Chris Rock and Blac Chyna as Will Smith. She was trying to create imagery for the jury, trying to say that my son Rob Kardashian is Chris Rock in this situation, and Blac Chyna is Will Smith, the arrogant icon who believes that they are above the law and above reprimand, which has nothing to do with this case. It has nothing to do with this case. And you cannot, how dare you have the arrogance to say that your son, who has exploited this young woman on Instagram, who has lied to the court about assault charges, which he later dismissed, who has continuously aided and abetted you into dismantling her financially, how dare you make him Chris Rock in this situation? How dare you? It's the egregious nature of their inhumanity for me. It's the egregious nature of the inhumanity for me. And if I were Chyna'S attorney, I would make sure the jury was well aware of how they like to gaslight the media. They like to gaslight people, and they, in fact, gaslit Chyna'S all the way to signing her own death certificate when they helped her and encouraged her to signing a kill agreement for her hit show, because she was under the guise that she was simply taken in advance and that she was going to be featured in other shows. She thought she was signing in advance with an upgrade when really she was signing a death certificate. And she did so under the guidance of Kris Jenner, who positioned herself as an ally and not as an enemy. And that's what I think Lenciani needs to focus on in this case. And that's what I think Lenciani needs to direct her attention to. And I would personally, after having my body language expert come in and my voir dire expert, I would strongly consider moving to mistrial, because I think there's some elements of the case that even she can redo. She needs to come out with a lot more passion, a lot more passion. She needs to come out a lot more aggressive. She needs to play the way they're playing, but not dirty and violating evidence that was deemed inadmissible. But she needs to pressure these girls. She needs to get them jammed up legally, and make them account for themselves. You know, I don't think it's a matter of race. Somebody put in the chat that white people always win Tango Mango. I don't think it's always a matter of race. I think it's a matter of preparation. It's a matter of surprise, and it's a matter of, it's not what you know, it's what you can prove in court. Those are the things that help you win a case in court, in my opinion. Proper jury selection, because if you don't pick a good jury, you're screwed. If you pick a biased jury, you are done. You are done, because you're trying to convince the jury. That is the goal of a trial, to convince the jury that they should vote in your favor. You are putting your case on compelling testimony and on the ability to move the jury one way or the other. Kris Jenner already put a compelled emotion into the jury when she told that joke about Will Smith, and the jury started laughing. She already invoked emotion from the jury, one of jest and one of comedy. She already evoked an emotion from them. I don't hear any elements that are being reported in which Lenciani has been able to evoke a compelling emotion from the jury. And that is a problem for me. That's a problem, because you have to be able to evoke emotion from the jury. That's how you win a case. So if you're not willing to talk about the character of Kris Jenner, and you're not willing to make sure that these women know that you know how dirty they played, where's the smoking gun? And granted, the trial hasn't been decided yet, but the fact that Lenciani is broaching the topic of a mistrial lets me know that she's feeling like she's losing this case. Because if she thought she was winning this case, she would not potentially motion or signal that she would consider a mistrial if she thought she was winning. Because think about it, whenever you're watching football, here's the best analogy I can give you guys. If you're watching football, you know how if you catch an interception and you score a touchdown, but before you was running to the touchdown, the other team did a face mask, or they held you for a little too long, and they go, oh, we have met with the offense, and offensive line declines this penalty. That is what happens when you're winning. You would decline the penalty in football, because the gain you got, which was scoring the touchdown, outweighed the penalty, which was a face mask. You declined the penalty. The fact that Lenciani is saying, I might not decline that penalty, which is when Michael Rhodes showed those nudes to Blac Chyna to derail her testimony, lets me know that she thinks she might be losing the case. She thinks she might be losing the case. And now she's pulling her ace in the hole. So she let Michael Rhodes get that smoke off, because she said, that's my ace in the hole. That's my creme de la creme. I can exit today on this, because there's no judge, especially if she goes into those chambers and she talks about How that juror admitted that he could not be impartial after seeing Kim Kardashian's sex tape. Once she brings that to the judge's attention, the judge will be compelled to rule mistrial. Compelled to rule mistrial. And if he doesn't, when that it will go to appeal and they will declare a new trial for China. Because you cannot say that bias would not be present when you have proof of concept that someone admitted it would be. It's a smoking gun. And Linciani has it in her pocket. But there's a risk. There is a risk. There is a risk with going and redoing this trial over because now you've played your cards. And that's why you got to be very careful not to play all your cards to the very end. Because there's a lot that happens throughout a trial. And that those last 2 days is when it got to get real good for you. It got to get real good for you. So if Linciani's going to move to mistrial, now is the time. Now is the time, Lynn. It's now. Do not play all your cards before moving to mistrial. You need to do it now, and you need to save the smoking gun for the new trial. Because trust me, the preparation going to hit different on both sides. It's going to hit different on both sides. And this time I want China to get on the stand and talk about how Kris Jenner helped her negotiate for that show. I want her to talk about how Kris Jenner would call her and talk to her about the deal. I want to talk to her about, did she have her own attorney review the contract? I want to hear those critical elements of the case that make sense to me as a juror. I want to hear it. I want to hear about the private conversations and text message between Kris and Jeff Jenkins. I want to see it. I want the phone records. Well, I want to know. I want him to get on the thing and testify. How could you possibly say that you only saw Rob and China happy once and it was a toxic relationship, and unless China's going to get on stand and say, yeah, me and Jeff Jenkins were having dinner every week with Rob. How do you know that? You are making a biased, wild testimony, Jeff. It's biased and it's wild. How could you say you know the status of their relationship when you don't hang out with these people? So now you're saying you're friends with Rob Kardashian? Because Kris Jenner said y'all are not friends, but you're friends with Rob because you know all the details of me and China and Rob's relationship. And please convince me, you cannot convince me that Jeff Jenkins is sitting on the cutting room floor watching hours and hours and hours and hours of footage of Rob and China to make decisions about how that show is going to be sliced and diced. That is a lie. You are the co-president of the network. You have more pressing meetings to attend than watching footage. That's why you hired a whole team to executive produce and cut up that show. You are not watching the footage. You are basing your account on hearsay. And hearsay is not admissible in court. It's not admissible. So don't come in here talking about something you don't know about. I would have treated him as a hostile witness. Like, whoa. Were you and Rob Kardashian having private conversations about his relationship with Blac China? Answer the question, Jeff. Were you? Did he call you? Because if he did, that goes to conspiracy. Did you ask China her opinion on the relationship? Did you see any police reports? Did they come to you with any bruises and scars? Did they show you evidence, photographic evidence of Black Rob having his face beat the skin, according to Kris Jenner? Hyperbole, Kris Jenner. If I was Linciani, I'm telling hyperbole is not a defense, Kris Jenner. You cannot use hyperbole and exaggeration to dissuade someone from millions of dollars. You can't do it. You stole from her. You're like a thief in the night. And I would have treated her as hostile. Linciani marked Kris Jenner as an adverse witness, which means she should have been prepared to treat her as a hostile witness. And you got to get hostile a little bit and put the pressure on her. Make her crack. She's not above humiliation. She's not above it. She executive produced IMK. If you ain't watched one of my other lives, I made a whole video about how the spinoffs prove that they are not above humiliation, embarrassment, fighting, violence, any of that. None of that. They're not above any of that. And if I'm Linciani, I'm talking about it. You have a problem with China's violence, but you don't have a problem with the violence in your own household between your daughters who kickboxed each other on national television, which aired. You don't have a problem with Scott Disick's drug use, Lamar Odom's drug use. You don't have a problem with drug use. Lamar Odom was actively using cocaine through the whole season of Lamar and Chloe. But you got a problem with drug use? Scott Disick got so drunk at a dinner that he shoved a $20 bill in the mouth of a waiter. But you have a problem with violence? You got a problem with drugs and alcohol? Scott Disick punched a hole in the mirror on national television, but you got a problem with violence? Save it for somebody who don't believe it. You need to come correct with the heat. I would have been on her back. You gotta account for it. You can't just tell me some BS and expect me as the lawyer to believe it and buy into it. You gotta account for your testimony. When is violence okay? Violence is okay when it's white on white crime. Drugs are okay when, as long as your daughters consent to it. When is it okay? Because I'm a little unsure. I'm unsure, Kris Jenner. When is violence too much? When is enough enough? When is the line? When do we cross the line? When do we cross the line? When? When do we cross the line? I don't buy it. I don't buy it. If you want to send receipts, you can email me at chitchattribe@gmail.com. That's CHITCHATTRIBE@gmail.com. Y'all, my little chit chat game, because this is what we do. We come and we chit chat about the facts of the case. I love giving my investigative opinion on what I would do if I was in the city. I'd be so impassioned and compelled because I hate to see somebody be taken advantage of, especially Blac Chyna, who, in my opinion, is pretty much defenseless in this case. They cut her off from 2 ways to Sunday. They took everything from her, and the crux on the cake, which I almost didn't even want to believe, was the trademarking of her daughter's name. I could not believe. I just could not believe it. It's so egregious that I don't know how I could be an impartial juror ever. How could anybody be impartial and not see what they're up to? They're up to no good. They are up to no good. So that's my take on the Blac Chyna in case as of today. Lenciani needs to hire someone who specializes in boudoir and also a body language expert. She needs to have that jury evaluated and see if whether or not they are partial to Chyna or if they are partial to those Kardashians. And she needs to decide today. Well, once the jury rules if whether Chyna could do a new testimony, I wouldn't even fight for that. You need to get a read on that jury and decide ASAP if you want to move to mistrial. You need to decide. And then you need to prepare better. You need to come with a lot more heat. You need to be a whole new Lent. You need to be the one they don't see coming, Lenciani, in that next trial. So that's my take on Rob on the Kardashian Chyna case. I hope you guys enjoyed the live. Please remember to like it on the way out. Please like, comment, share, and subscribe to this channel. The jury, oh, Lord have mercy. Lord have mercy. The jury's all white. Lord have mercy. Lord have mercy. Lord. So please like, comment, share, subscribe.